Thank you so much for hanging around for this last talk. My name is Sandy Cruz. I'm a registered holistic nutritionist. I'm also a certified metabolic balance coach, and I'm the host of Sandy K Nutrition Health and Lifestyle Queen podcast, where you learn all about how to age better through alternative means. So we have an amazing panel, and we're going to go down the line and have everybody introduce themselves. Misha's going to be first.
Oh, yeah?
Yes. And I am going to ask you guys just to provide one line on what you do to hack your mood in a world with so much distress going on right now. Misha.
Start with who I am or start with the one thing?
Well, who you are and what's your
one line. If you weren't here for the last lecture, I am Chef Misha Hyman. Can you hear me? Is this getting picked up back there?
Yes.
So I run a company called the Health Warrior Project, where I teach people that you can heal a lot of our world's mental health, chronic health, and environmental crisis and issues through changing our food system and basic lifestyle interventions. And if you add the biohacking stuff, you become a superhero. And the one thing that I personally do, if you follow me on social media, you'll see I'm kind of ruthless about it, is I am addicted to the feeling I get after a hot Russian Turkish bathhouse or a banya and then a cold plunge. So every probably 2 or 3 days I go to New York. I'm in New York City, or there's actually one here that they're going to be opening up soon. I'll let you know more about that later with the family of the Russian Turkish bathhouse. They're my close family, friends, and we work together on a biohouse in actually Oregon we're going to be activating. But I sauna almost religiously, and that's probably the main biohack that I do. So that's the one.
All right. I'm going to open that up then, because it doesn't have to be food. Right?
Oh, you were saying food.
But it doesn't have to be.
Forgot the panel I was on. Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay.
No, can I actually
Come on,
answer?
Misha.
You can answer it that way too.
Yeah.
Yes, sure.
So honestly, for me, it's almost the opposite. I try to eliminate what I eat and only eat in a 2 to 3 hour window between 2 and 5 p.m. And if I have any high glycemic foods or high gluten foods, immediately I'll feel it. So I try to always eat high quality fats, grass finished meats. Rarely I'll do dairy when I need a little mood boosting, but blueberries, anything really dark with phytonutrients. I didn't name one. Sorry. Grass finished meat. There we go.
I like it. What about you? Would you like to introduce yourself, John?
Oh, so I'm John Graham Harper. Let's see, where do I start? This is a tough one. I'll try to condense it and make it quick. I guess I was a former trainer, and I opened up gyms, and then I went into supplements, and then I actually went into the combat entertainment business. And throughout that whole time, I was very competitive. I was a rugby player, but I blew both my shoulders out. I got into competitive CrossFit, and I blew my knee out. Then I started boxing. I did amateur boxing, and due to some serious concussions to the head, I developed a tumor, which I need to have surgery for. So I stopped doing that, and I went into bodybuilding. And I guess throughout that whole time, food was a very important part, to be competitive. Food's a key element. And I didn't really explore that much, but recent years I've thought about it a lot. But then I got turned on to light therapy, because light therapy really helped me with pain, with all the pain, my injuries. Helped me with a lot of pain that was in my family and friends. And I guess you could say I saw the light. And now I really believe in light therapy. But I think when it comes to food, the key thing is we always have, this is a very informed community here,
yes.
Right? Everyone here is extremely informed, but we all have those friends and family that are really beginners, right? They're beginners, and they'll ask you questions like, is this healthy to eat? And you'll look at it and you'll say, a 4-year-old retarded child would know the answer to that. Why are you asking me that? But there's other reasons, right? And I think to have good mood, you really need to have a good relationship with food. And I think most people, at the end of the day, I don't necessarily mean the well-informed community that's here, but your average person outside that somehow thinks that fast food is okay to eat, that drinking a jug of Pepsi a day is okay. They just want to look and feel confident. And food can help with that, right? So I guess I think like the first task to get people to progress to a stage where they're understanding a lecture that he just performed is managing calories, right? Manage your calories and have a good relationship with food to where you're not using food as a way to escape or to feel good when you're not feeling significant. But you can kind of see my brain sort of sees food as a way that people use as a means of escape, as a means to feel good, and it's for something short term. For me, I always felt so guilty eating bad food. I would hate myself that the pain of that outweighed the feeling of being good. So I always had a very good relationship with food. I wouldn't say that I was some guru and I hacked like my calories and I tracked I just simply had something where if I ate something I shouldn't have and I started to get overweight or I started to feel drowsy or I was eating something wrong, I would feel bad about that. I would say, John, you messed up, you should know better, and I would feel bad about that. And then that would make me manage my calories, manage my eating, make me be healthy, make me be competitive, and actually perform quite well.
Great,
But, yeah.
great. Iman,
It's a bit too much, though.
I felt like I underperformed.
please introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. So my name's Iman Hassan. I'm the founder of IHC Agency. We are a creative marketing agency based between New York and Miami. I got into health and wellness about 5 years ago because I had a lot of personal health issues that came up, and I went the functional route versus going the traditional medicine route and started educating myself around this space. And we've taken what we've been doing for 15 years, building luxury brands, and now applying it to building health and wellness brands, standing behind founders and really cultivating that community. So I'm excited to be here. This is definitely the right audience for me. In terms of answering your other question, I think it goes down to habits. So kind of what Misha said, for me, cold plunging is a really big part of it. And then we cannot forget about the gut-brain connection, right? So having a healthy gut, having a healthy microbiome, I think plays a big part in regulating your mood, serotonin, dopamine. So I think that's one of the key places for me.
Excellent.
Yeah, well said. My name is Ben Azadi. I'm the founder of Keto Camp. I wrote 4 books. The last one is called Keto Flex. Our mission is to educate and to inspire 1 billion people, and within the 1 billion people to reverse type 2 diabetes in 1 million people. And we're well on our way to do that. The question, all the answers were fantastic. I was going to say something about, I enjoy beating Misha in basketball.
He loves that. He loves that.
But I'm going to give a serious answer. I think when we look at disease and symptoms, you mentioned you notice the symptoms when eating bad food. I love that idea of the intuition. You eat something, you notice the symptoms. The symptoms are symptoms are not bad. It's actually the innate intelligence's check engine light, right? It's thank God we have this. We've been brainwashed to believe that we should hate symptoms and hate disease. But as a matter of fact, we should be so thankful that we have this system in place to show us we ate something wrong or thought something bad. So that's number one. I agree with you, paying attention to the symptoms. But I also believe that the reason we have obesity is not because of what people are eating, but what's eating them. They're not living on purpose with their purpose.
Yes.
And a quote from Robert Heinlein, he said, in the absence of clearly defined goals, we become strangely loyal to performing daily trivia until ultimately we become enslaved by daily trivia. So daily trivia are addictions, food addictions, drug addictions. I've been there myself. When I got clear on my values and my goals, there's no time for that. But most people are tiptoeing their way through life to hope to land safely on death's door, that they don't really have goals. But if you get clear on your goals, then you're going to eat better because you're going to feel better, and it's going to align with your goals. So I think lack of purpose is a disease, an epidemic in itself. And I would say getting clear on your purpose is probably the most important things we could do for our health. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Absolutely.
Beautiful.
Can I just say one thing on that?
Yeah.
The real issue also, Ben made it, it's a really good point. When you're not in living your purpose and you're not following some people call it your higher calling, it can be difficult to even, when you're having a health crisis, to actually even be clear enough to even find your purpose. So it's a vicious cycle. If you watch for me, it's the same thing with, sorry for my French, but the fat bastard in Austin Powers. I eat because I'm happy, and I'm not happy because I eat.
Yeah,
and you can't get out of that cycle because literally one begets the other. So So that's so important, is you actually have to have a hard reset. And to do that is really to go keto. It will clear your brain so fast to get in that mood to find your purpose, because you guys probably know this in this group, but the ketogenic diet became a thing was because there was helping epileptic children not have seizures, because they're like, oh, let's give them Ensure, like the super toxic crap, and that helped. But the science like, oh, so we, omega-3 fats and all these good quality, fats can actually help brain diseases, which can actually help lower the inflammation, which can actually help you find your calling, so you can actually get healthy and make an action plan. So that was really important. I'm glad you mentioned
Well said.
Yeah.
Very well said.
That was great. I'm going to just add a little bit to this conversation because I am a nutritionist, but for me, I feel the most clarity when I am not always eating. Last year, it was, how shameful is it for a nutritionist to be pre-diabetic, right? That was me last year. And I have done every diet under the sun since I had my thyroid removed 12 years ago. And I'm like trying to find myself. I'm like, I used to be this tiny little person, right? So I think we all are really bio-individual, but having that symptom that our body's talking to us is really important. Do you feel like shit after you eat that giant meal that was bought from McDonald's, right? So I think that just knowing what you're putting in your body is number one. Number two is how are you eating? So I don't know what you guys think.
Can I say one last thing also?
Yeah.
So you mentioned about like mood, like how eating even junk food can be impacting your mood. It makes you feel better. So for someone who actually is a binge eater and suffers from anxious eating, I actually only eat when I'm having almost a panic attack or anxious or completely starving. That's my problem. But what I'm saying is, it's so hard, to actually calm the nervous system, to actually get in a place where you actually, like for me, for example, when I have a little bit of gluten, my calling, my purpose, which I'm pretty clear on, can literally disappear, and I have like a 2-day panic attack, quiet, and it's only in my head, but I'm laying in bed, I want to watch a movie, I don't want to go play basketball and practice. When I see Ben in Miami, I'll be ready for it. So when I actually get out of the routine that I know is good for me, my purpose, my calling almost goes out the window because of that vicious cycle again. So again, find your calling and then find your purpose and know how to reset yourself to get back there, because you won't get back there just by having a purpose. You have to reset your nervous system. And going on a keto camp and helping all your million friends get there is kind of the best way to do it, honestly. That's like, I'm not saying like don't do any other biohacking, but if you supplement keto diets or a keto light lifestyle with yoga, meditation, these other biohacks, you probably will solve 90% of your issues, unless you have some underlying lead, mercury poisoning, gut, microbiome stuff. That's kind of the answer. So this is mood food. So Ben's like creating mood food. He's the mood food camp guy. So let's get everyone in. Remember like Fat Camp, those movie heavyweights? Let's get everyone into like keto camps where we actually have experiences where you actually feel great when you leave the camp, and then can encourage your community to be in that.
Can I add one thing real quick? I know we're kind of going off course here.
No, that's all good.
Thanks to Misha, but no.
ADHD, remember?
What you said was valuable. I didn't realize that you go through that. When you don't align, or your food isn't in line with your values, then it takes you away from your values. That makes so much sense.
Within 10 minutes.
Yeah, I think we could all relate to that, right?
Yeah.
It's like, but I wanted to add the keto part. When I gave my lecture earlier, if you watched it, I showed that when you're in a state of ketosis, ketones communicate with the mitochondria. You get 400% more energy. Where, do you know which part of the brain has the most mitochondria? The brain, right? So you nailed it. Like if you're having those thinking thoughts, if you're not having the motivation, like that's a fast way to help take that first step. But the purpose thing needs to be spoken about. Like not in this community, because I think that we all are getting clear on our purpose.
Everybody's here is okay.
Yeah.
But with our friends and family, it's just so important. We live in a world where it's designed to take us away from our purpose or to project a purpose to you that's not your real purpose.
Yes.
And there's a book that I recommend everybody read called Recovering the Soul. by Dr. Larry Dossey. It's from the late 80s, but just the title alone, doesn't it light you up? Recovering the
gets
Soul.
you excited.
In the book, they showed that 85% of Americans have a heart attack Monday morning between 8 and 9 a.m.
Yes, I've heard that.
yeah.
I've heard that
8 and 9
stat.
a.m. Why do you
Yeah.
think that is?
Stress to go to work.
Stress.
They're going to a job that is not their purpose.
they hate their life.
85% of the time. And that was in the late 80s, probably worse now. So I just wanted to add that to the conversation.
That's a great point. I think that I would love to expand on the keto side. Because as I explained before, I kind of did it all. And sometimes very extreme. And I was always chasing, what was I like before I was 40? What was I like before I had thyroid problems? So keto didn't work for me, Ben. And I would love for you to answer that. No, you're the keto expert.
No,
because
you
Ben,
blaming
Ben,
me, Sandy.
No, I'm not blaming anyone. I'm not blaming anyone.
Fingers came this way.
This is a really important conversation
Yeah,
because
just-
what I love is the fact that you said you are not all in on keto all the time. You believe in flexibility.
in and out, yeah.
So,
Yeah,
and I
correct.
do understand the clarity because I've done keto. I do totally understand the clarity of the mind, but I would love for you to expand on that, and you, and
Yes.
anyone else. if
Yeah,
you
I
don't
think
mind.
also it's like, because keto, I recently got into it because at the biohacking event in Amsterdam, there's lots of chatter about it. And most of the people that I connected with there that I really, really respected and loved, they started talking about it. But I guess, I've got a friend, it's a very, very close friend, extremely overweight, but every time I see him, oh, John, yeah, I'm about to start my fast. He talks about the next thing, the transformation program he's about to do. And it's always about to do it, about it for years.
Yeah.
But if you were to say, okay, if you, we got keto, what is his, 3 things to get started on the keto path? What would you say is how?
I mean, the first one is to help him understand or help everybody understand that it's not a diet, it's a metabolic process, and there's nothing new about it, it's just nuance. So just understand that we're all designed to use this metabolic process. Not forever. I don't believe in continuous ketosis or even aggressive fasting. There's a healthy balance. But to your point, Sandy, and it will also answer your question, I'll give the 3 tips. There are millions of ways to do keto. And most people do it wrong. And I think actually most people are being harmed by keto than
yeah.
helped right now
Okay.
because of the popularity.
Yeah, well, that's
Okay.
What are the things that harm you when you do
Eating
it?
the
though?
wrong fats,
Well-
thinking
Okay.
you have to eat a whole bunch of fat, which you don't. So what I teach my students, the first 7 days, let's get those healthy fats that Misha spoke about.
Right.
Once you're in ketosis and fat adapted, let's lower the fat, focus on protein, and let your body get its fat from your love handles and body fat.
Can I just qualify one thing as you asked that? Can you tell us and tell the group, and I'm actually setting him up to tee you up on this one.
Yeah.
What was your ketogenic diet like? What did it look like? And then just to qualify, can you mention what the keto flu is to her? Because we're going to...
Okay,
Yes.
I have kind of done all of it. I was doing the coconut oil, having more fats, clean animal protein, a little bit of veg. And I'm going to tell you this because I think this is where the mind comes in. I don't know if I'm allowed to swear.
Do it.
Misha's done it.
She said she
Misha's
really
done
Just swear.
Did I? It was, for me, it
Yeah,
was a
we'll bleep
little
it
bit
out.
of a mind fuck because
Yeah.
I was constantly checking my blood. Okay, I
No,
know.
that's- no,
I'm
but that's-
not saying
no, no,
I'm
no.
right,
No, but
but I'm
that's important.
saying, so, this is where I'm a big believer in the body, the mind, the spirit, and the soul. I think they're all separate. And when I was checking my blood, it was maybe that's what made it fail for me, right? Because I was so obsessed about getting into that sweet spot.
Yeah. So that,
Right?
can I just touch on that? Because that's really important. That's something I work with almost all my clients on.
Okay.
Does anybody know the term orthorexia?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Does
yeah.
anybody have a friend who's an
100%.
orthorexic?
Yeah.
I was.
Is anybody an orthorexic? Ha ha.
X.
So an orthorexic is basically the opposite of, let's imagine it's like orthodoxy, right? You're so focused on your diet, you're so focused on being gluten-free, that you're going to ask your waiter 45 times about seed oils, or see if it's from a
that you
cattle
just
farm, and
become a
see
dick.
what's the soil to grow in, and what's the elevation where the grapes come in, and these tomatoes have glyphosate, and was there any harm done to that cow? But does this goat milk before it was murdered? So the stress that puts on you,
doesn't.
your community, the people at your table, it's a shit show for your community. But internally, does anybody know what cortisol does and stress does to your hormones, and then what happens to your diet, your body, and your weight when you have hormone and issues, and cortisol spikes because of your stress? Anybody know that? Right, we're all biohackers.
Yes.
So I have clients who, like what you're saying, did all the diets. But if you're doing the diets, no offense, where you're constantly checking when I put my patients on or clients on ketogenic diets, I never let them look at their monitors. I never let them look, because you literally can tell within 30 minutes of what's going on just by how you feel, right? And what you said was how the mainstream Americans or Western world are doing keto. Waffle, put all in cheese, 5 types of cheese, and maybe one little piece of Parmesan crisp on top of a waffle iron, make a waffle. This is my cheese omelet. I have clients who, again, he's completely right. You want to get into ketosis and then stay at that baseline where your body's running on very high efficient fuel. You want to get your glycogen storing super low. You don't want to actually have, this. You don't want. In my opinion, I don't actually call it ketogenic diets. I call it keto light, or what I do. It's more like a plant-rich diet, but using the omega-3s, using good fats. That will still put you into ketosis. You will actually probably have better bowel movements. You'll have more energy. And there's a whole, I have a big issue with a lot of Paul Saladino and all these guys who are like, no vegetables, and Dave Asprey, I have a big problem with him. Like kale's toxic, avoid kale. How are you getting healthy if you have kale? It's almost like the opposite side of propaganda. You're trying to be funny, but we're actually confusing people. Where I now have clients who, carnivore is great. If you want to do it for 30 days to get reset, fine. But if you're going to tell me that I'm not going to have nature's vitamins and minerals and nutrients that are grown from my garden because I can have my meat, but maybe your meat isn't from a regenerative farm in Missouri where they're eating, all the little insects and biodiversity that's actually going to get that CLA, conjugated linoleic acid, super rich, that's going to heal us. So we're actually overthinking things to the point where even if you're doing all the right things, you are orthorexia is putting you in a nervous state where it is PTSD, it is depression, it is anxiety, and if you do the meditations, the brain taps, the keto, that lowers the nervous system to actually not be at baseline ready to act be that way. However, if to doing the activity is causing her the stress and making her have to recheck and the anxious, and she wants the number to go down, that is going to make it actually get worse. And you're actually going to gain weight. You're going to feel sick. Your joints are going to, literally, have anybody heard how gratitude and anxiety are the exact same part of the brain? You know about this? Yes. So if you're anxious, just list 5 things you're grateful for, and the anxiety will go away, because it can't multitask, right? So we literally, I have clients who literally, if they have a vegetable, a big, plate of vegetables and grass-fed meat, and are stressing out about it, they'll be constipated, they'll eat it, they'll have health issues, they can't sleep. Or I have other patients or clients who are, I have these 2 sisters that have the same meal. One of them is 30 pounds lighter, the other one is, they're actually twins, it's the exact same diet they're on, and one's doing well, one's not, because one is freaking out over the data, and one's just like, oh, go to yoga class, no big deal. And it's that obvious. So for someone like you, you know too much. It's called paralysis by analysis. No.
However, that was before I went back to college.
Not you, but them.
I'm just saying, the thing is too, I think we all have to be careful about who we work with as a health coach or a nutritionist or a dietitian, because it was like, check your blood. I'm like, oh my God, no, I'm not there yet. Oh, well, there must be something wrong with your liver. And then right? So this was before I went back to college, and I was very turned off by it. And then, I know a lot of people who do really well on it. And it's a great way to kickstart that clarity of the brain, that, initial weight loss. But then you learn, and you have people like yourselves who are experts who teach how to be flexible. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's the ultimate goal, to find that sweet spot. And, another mistake is men and women doing it the same way.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you for
that.
mentioning
Yeah,
that.
they should not. Fasting too. So,
Yes.
and then also another mistake is women who have a menstrual cycle also need to do it differently than women who are postmenopausal. So there's different ways to do it. And to both of your point with the checking, people could get stressed out from that, throw off the numbers, they're chasing ketones. So it's really dependent on the person. If somebody who's more like you, I would tell them just throw away that meter. Let's focus on how you feel,
Yeah.
some non-scale victories. But somebody like me, I like to look at those metrics. You might like to look at metrics too. So it's dependent on the person. But there's so many, we could talk forever about keto. There's so many ways to do it. There's not one way. There's not a cookie cutter approach is what I'm trying to say. It's going to be custom to that person, their unique health history, their goals, man, women, age, etc. Then you could outline a good game plan for them.
Can I just say something? I would love to hear from Iman, only because you touched on something that's really important. And I don't know, I think I've heard the term maniverse?
Huh?
Like, everything is from a male perspective.
Not mansplaining. I wasn't mansplaining.
No.
Was I mansplaining?
Not at all. No, but the whole world is based on, the data from
because
men.
all the studies.
Biohacking
Yes.
is based on everything around
Yes.
men. There's very little information around women and our bodies and how we work and how we function. We have 4
right.
hormone cycles a month. So we have to factor that in. And I think one of the things you were saying is, I think discipline and mindset. Having a positive mindset, I think, is a starting point before you enter any sort of a journey.
Yes.
Having that time to adapt to your body, not being in a race with the next person, giving yourself space to do things at your pace and not trying to be an overachiever. So I'm somebody who's guilty of that. I spent the last 3 years just optimizing, and then my hormones got thrown off. And I stopped and said, listen, I'm a woman. I can't intermittent fast right now. I'm not a candidate for intermittent fasting. I have to get myself metabolically flexible again. So that's something I'm currently working on. So I think women and men are so different. Our bodies work in such different ways. Environmental stressors, our sleep, our hormone cycles internally, our clock is so important. So I think having that positive mindset and understanding what you can and cannot do with your body is very different.
Yeah, well said.
Great
100%.
point.
Yeah.
That's great. And also, again, I'm not saying men don't have this. I'm just saying a lot of the women that I know have the career, do the travel, kind of are the first go-to for the kids. I'm sitting here at the conference watching my daughter on Life 360 and wondering, how much has she been partying this weekend at homecoming? But some of my friends here know, but this is my life. And then I'm trying to be present here. So I think with women, we need to be cognizant of all the other factors, including menopause, including
Even working out.
Even working out,
You have
yes.
to put your workouts around your cycle.
Yes.
And make sure you're not overdoing it when you are actually on your cycle and stuff, because that can stress out the body. And stress like that can end up damaging you even further, which is something men don't struggle with. So I think making sure you're in tune and you're understanding your age, what your background is, what you're genetically also prone to or not.
Yes.
So the DNA company is a company I'm really passionate about. It gave me so much data and background on, I'm South Asian originally. So for example, understanding things like I can't take certain supplements. They don't genetically resonate with me, things that I did not know. So I think living in a world that you have access to so much data is educate yourself, make sure you're applying things, not blanket statements. Social media can also be very over-consuming and confusing, and making sure you're doing your research on things.
I love it.
Can I piggyback on that for a second?
Yeah.
I think it's so important to actually know what's under the hood, right? You have to actually, again, we're all different. All our bodies are, we're all the same kind of bodies, but we all have bio-individualities.
Yeah.
Because of our environments are all different. And I think what's really important is if we don't actually do blood testing and do epigenetic testing and see what's going on, see what gene markers are being expressed or not expressed, can really impact not just our health, but our the generation health following us. And there's a lot of indicators for mental health that we can deal with and solve.
Yeah.
So I'm just mentioning this really quickly. Does anybody know about Function Health? Has anybody heard of this before? So I actually, anybody that wants to, there's actually a functional medicine AI, lab testing company that Dr. Mark Hyman actually created, and there's actually a 50,000 person waiting list to get on that thing, and it's like a $15,000 value for like $500. You get a full functional medicine lab testing. I can get you a discount code if you want. Find me afterwards, or I'll maybe put it up just for this group to get you ahead of the wait list, to get you on, so we can be like real biohackers and get all the data. But very important, you have to know what's going on under the hood and what we're predisposed to, so we can actually reverse engineer and deal with epigenetics in a smart way. And for people that are struggling with keto, just to mention this, I was trying to have Ben highlight this, has anybody heard of the keto flu?
Yeah.
Yes, I've had it.
Has anybody done, there we go. Has anybody done the ketogenic diet and felt super lethargic, super sick, super tired, low energy, and actually like not well? Anybody? David, of course you did.
David.
So basically, that's when you get the keto flu. So all that really means is you're really low in like salt, sodium, electrolytes, and a few other stuff. So a lot of people think salt is bad for you, right? Too much salt, low sodium. Again, more propaganda. It depends where you get your salt from. Oryx salt, you can find it at Whole Foods. There's a Kalahari Desert sea salt, the purest salt on the planet. It's the 300-foot strata in the ground, so there's no toxicity. Himalayan sea salt now is actually being tested for toxicity. So basically, why did I bring up salt? Oh yeah, if you have more salt in your diet, when you're doing keto and you have no sugar, when you have low sugar, you have to have more salt. So most people get the keto flu by not having enough electrolytes. So, and a lot of people get sick they will have low sugar and low salt. They think that's healthy. And everyone will get super, super sick and discouraged and move on. So if you do keto, make sure you have a bag of Himalayan sea salt or Oryx sea salt just to supplement. Or get his limit code, electrolyte, a discount code, and hook it up.
Elements, yeah.
Elements.
Also, on top of that, and you also want to gradually decrease the carbs. Don't go from 300 grams of carbs to under 50, because that'll happen. You don't need to get symptoms to do keto. You don't need to go through keto flu. Keep the salt up. Do a gradual decrease in carbs, gradual increase in fat, and it'll be a smooth transition. 7 days in ketosis, no symptoms.
I would just also like to just piggyback a little bit on what you said about genetics. You guys both talked about it. I think it's really important to know, because I also did DNA company, and I've done multiple tests, and I know the basics, but it's a lot of it has to do with interpretation too,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
So I know, for example, COMT. So everybody here can go and find out what kind of a COMT gene they have. So if you have certain genetic predispositions to clear dopamine very quickly, you're going to keep looking for that dopamine hit, right? Like I know I'm one of those people. So, have you guys done genetic testing here in the panel? Everybody?
Yeah.
Yeah? So talk to me. What's your greatest finding for your mood? I think we know, because you mentioned it in your lecture, but I want to know more. I think that's so important to know where, I'm not even going to say challenges, where you're able to improve upon in terms of your genetics. What do you know?
Me first?
Yeah, you first. Yeah.
So I forget the name of the gene. So much
Well,
data
we
in my
don't-
head, but there's this gene that any addict or anybody that has severe ADHD, depression, anxiety, there's a gene that it's very expressed, and it actually, again, I think it's the one maybe you're
I
talking
think it's
about.
COMT.
Yeah.
Maybe we're the same.
No, yeah. So I
We
have
might be the
Yeah, so
same.
I have that too. So I have the dopamine rush like all the time. So I live in this. So the PTSD is like, what Kanye is like my bipolar superpower. That's kind of how I feel. I feel like I have hypervigilance. I can see everything at all times. I don't have to. I can. I do rest. I do know how to sleep very well. But when I'm working, I can do like 3 hours of sleep. Nothing, no issue. I meditate, whatever. But I think ultimately, I have a need for when I drink. If you have that gene, you need more alcohol, you need more food, you need more substance to actually get you there. So let's say you don't have that gene. He's blackout on 2 tequilas. I'm fine on 7 tequilas. It actually is a thing. So I need to have, so I'm a raging codependent, so I need to make you all love me. So I do a dinner party last night, so you all come over and you all want to work with me, and I build a business where you guys go come over and I pay you to pay the community to build biohacking centers, because I have that gene. If I didn't have that gene, I would just be sitting in my room, like probably on crypto stuff, making some money. But no, I want that dopamine hit of feeling included, feeling loved. A lot of these codependents or addictions, or people who have addictions are actually people who are suffering from codependency, which basically is an unresolved childhood trauma or trauma. Does anybody know Gabor Mate, Dr. Gabor Mate?
Yes.
He's probably the leading thinker on ADHD, depression, anxiety, and now he's substance abuse. He has this whole theory that most people who have substance abuse it's not genetic. You're not genetically disposed to being an alcoholic because your mother's an alcoholic, but you're genetically disposed to the same way she handles trauma or the way she processes the trauma. So maybe instead of being alcoholic, she's going to be an orthorexic and never drink, or maybe instead of being alcoholic, she'll be anorexic, or she'll be a binge eater. But whatever that is, you can reset those genes by, keto. You can work with epigenetics there. You can supplement with, vitamins. You can use brain tap or some of these devices that we have here to help change that kind of ecosystem and make some waves.
Awesome. John?
I did do the DNA fit test. It did tell me a bit how to train, tell me what to eat. Obviously I shouldn't have dairy because I know it doesn't sit well. I shouldn't have smoked meat. I remember just these two. But that was just about it. I mean, I'm actually very injury prone. So no surprises
That
there.
makes sense.
Thanks. But yeah, it was a good test. I did it many, many years ago. But at the time, I don't think I deep dived into it. I think I was competing for something at the time. And I was like, I'm already on a program. I'm already got my coach. I'm already on doing something. But I do remember a bit of the data that came back that I'm implementing right now.
And genetics can be a lot, but
It can.
yeah, that's why they have companies whereby I actually have no affiliation with the DNA company. I'm just saying because I've done their test and I've interviewed them twice, and I think that they really give
From
you
a functional perspective.
From a functional,
Yeah.
exactly.
They do a great job at that.
A lot of people will be like, okay, now what? What do I do with this? So
that's what I loved about mine. So I got my test back. I did it I think it was February, March, and I got back, I don't remember the gene, but I have very high dopamine receptors. And so I get dopamine hits very quickly, and my clearance is super slow. So I can get these, I'm perpetually like kind of happy and happy-go-lucky, and I kind of get these quick hits. My serotonin is extremely dysregulated, which makes me ADD. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. So it's a superpower that I can switch on and off. That's how I was kind of taught that. And so taking certain supplementations can help me regulate that, but I don't always want to be regulating that. Another thing that I learned was we hear that, glutathione is a master anti-detoxer and it's incredible for you. I can't take glutathione.
I'm the same as you.
I don't remember what the gene is called, but it clears out even the good stuff out of my body. So it's clearing out minerals, taking out nutrients. And I was injecting myself with glutathione because I heard it's amazing, we should all be using it. And then I get this test back and I'm like, holy shit, I can't be taking this. Like it doesn't
What
work
am I
for
doing
me.
to myself?
What am I doing? So I think having all this information at hand, getting to learn your body, how you function, your mind, it's just equipping us to realize we're all individuals. One size does not fit all, and that's where customized supplementation is something I'm also a big fan of. You have to know what you need, and I think that's where functional practitioners come in versus generic doctors. Functional labs are tighter. They really focus on healthy people versus seeing unhealthy people. So you're really focusing on what does your body need, what do you need as an individual to functional at your optimal. So.
Ben,
Yeah,
I would
well
love
said.
for you to add to the genetics
Yeah,
conversation.
it's such a lot of moving parts with genetics, right?
Yeah.
I think genetics are great to test, but I always believe epigenetics rules, right? And it gives you clues to things you can do with your environment and your food and your supplements, to your point, to get the positive epigenetic response that you want. I know that I was never taught when I was learning nutrition that we could turn off genes,
Correct.
and turn on genes. Like, how incredible is that? So our environment, of course, determines that. But I've done the DNA fitness one probably like 4 years ago. And I've done the DNA test too. So what I learned from the DNA fitness one was eating char grilled meat is not a good idea.
That's right.
Right.
I also I'm a slow metabolizer for caffeine, which is terrible news because I love coffee. It says to avoid it or limit it, so I have to limit my caffeine. I also have a salt sensitivity, which I notice when I eat a lot of salty foods, like my fingers start to swell.
Yeah.
So these kind of made sense to me. The fitness report said I could kick Misha's butt in basketball. The
All
DNA.
11:30 come to Crespi Park.
The DNA test was similar to
Yeah.
the fitness one, but it was more comprehensive. And I like Cash and I like what
Yeah.
they're doing. So yeah, gives you clues, but you want to work with a really good practitioner, or the company will assign a practitioner to interpret it for you. Because then you have kind of like your susceptibilities and like this recipe, but then you have a guide to make some decisions with your nutrition and supplements to kind of activate the right genes and turn off the bad genes. So I think it's super valuable.
I think so,
Yeah.
because when I think this entire conference talks about being proactive and preventative, right?
Yes.
That's what everybody here is all about. Because when you've already got the fire, it's hard to put it out. So I think educating, I'm a mom, I have 2 kids, they're older, and they do what they want, and it's really important for me to educate them. I don't know if they're listening.
Quite yet.
The subconscious mind is
They're
getting
They're
it.
hearing it.
You know, they're 18 and 22, but you know, I'm trying, and I see the stress. Well, my daughter used to be an athlete, my son is, and I see the stress in them, and I'm like, here's what I need you to do to just relax your brain.
Yeah.
Go for a walk in nature. No headphones. Don't listen to anything. Like for me, that's my personal #1 hack. I know this is about food, but I think we need to add in practices. But something happens. Social media troll happens all the time, right? You get that? Like I feel like I need to release that. The way I do it is to go for a walk with my dog in nature. So I think we should talk about that. Like I'm sure everybody, well, you mentioned cold plunge, right?
Yeah.
So what else do you love to do?
How short or long should I make this go?
You do you.
You sure?
Can you ever do short?
I was there, sure.
We love it though. We
I'm
love you, bro.
neurodivergent. Remember, I got PTSD.
We love
I
you,
gotta
Misha.
defend my way out. No, so look, I think to quickly enhance my mood, there's nothing better than like a 210-degree sauna, right? I think a cold plunge, you know, as adjunct therapy with, you know, heat therapy is probably the best thing you can do. But again, if you don't regulate your gut microbiome, you don't actually have a pretty, you know, low inflammatory diet, all the other stuff, it's probably going to do maybe 10% of what it could do on its own. So again, you kind of have, in my opinion, you have to have the foundation, you know, in your body, and what the input is your foundation to actually have the, you know, effects work of the other biohacking tips and tricks. But I think like super simple stuff. Like, does anybody know like waking up first thing in the morning and going outside for 20 minutes stimulates your pineal gland to the point where you actually can reduce depression, anxiety, and PTSD, and actually ameliorates a lot of autism symptoms and children with autism. So go outside for 20 minutes in the sunlight, even if it's cloudy, don't wear sunglasses, just, you know, take your dog, no phone, no nothing. That's free. Cold shower, that's free unless you live in an apartment, you gotta pay the water bill. You don't have to get a cold plunge for that. And I think like the #1 thing that I really like when I'm having a really bad moment, and I've, you know, friends here that we did it earlier this morning to kind of sync up and calm our nervous systems before walking in for my biohacking, was we just did box breathing. Anybody know what box breathing is?
Yeah.
You know, 4 in, hold, 4 out, hold, 4 in, whatever. So that, you know, within 30 seconds turns me from a holy shit, today's gonna be an awful day, I'm not gonna do my lecture well, I'm gonna fall asleep, I'm not gonna have enough coffee, I'm probably gonna eat a snack and fall asleep somewhere, I'm a binge eater, I don't have any dinner to lunch. So all these running through my mind after we meditated. Me and Mickey and Mandy were rocking it, and it literally was just because of that 30-second syncing meditation in the car, and that's free. And then the other thing that's free is, you know, I don't always win, but when I do win, beating Ben is like the best thing that ever happened to me in basketball.
I lead the series, just for the record.
He won like 7 in a row, then I won 4 out of 5, so it's okay.
Yeah. The comeback. But I think everything he said, exactly the same. I think there's something so magical about watching the sunrise. I think if
Well, no, so before
Super
that,
magical.
watching the sunrise, like from dusk to the sunrise, is actually more powerful than just watching the sunrise. So that's like the best thing. Yeah, go for it.
yeah, and it's something that you can never get tired of. Every time you see it, you're just like, wow, that's
Yeah.
well, gratitude. You just get you get a real appreciation for being alive. So definitely watching the sunrise, cold shower, cold plunge, obviously red light, yes. But everybody has their happy place, right? Where we kind of fight our demons or fix our problems. Usually when we're there's a problem, we're not confident, we need to go to our happy place because we feel powerful there, we can fix problems. So everybody has their happy place. You don't need to like think what would be the ideal happy place. You do have your happy place. You just probably just don't identify it as a happy place. For me, it's the gym. In the gym, you know, blood flows glowing and I feel powerful. And usually if something is broken in life, relationships, work, whatever, when I go to the gym and I'm not doing some program or, you know, writing my sets, I figure the problem out. I don't know why, but for my whole life it's been like that. I figured the problem out and I come back on the computer, go back to the meeting, and I think, yeah, everyone, if you do have you maybe, again, you don't see it as a happy place, but you do have your happy place. I would think it'd be in the kitchen for you. You know, when you're working with food.
Basketball court.
Or the basketball court. But you all have that place, and that's your place where you fight your demons and you fix your problems. So that's it.
Can I just like piggyback, or not piggyback, but just mention what he's saying that you said, I don't know why that calms everything down. I don't know why. To what Ben said. You're fulfilling your
purpose. Yeah.
But not even your purpose. You're actually putting yourself in flow state.
Yes.
And you actually are, you know,
being me, my optimal me.
Exactly. And it's actually a meditative ritual process.
That's right, meditative
ritual process. So that's why.
That's the
because you're like, oh, I'm gonna go meditate and, you know, do yoga for 3 hours. I have no idea why I feel better. Oh my God, I can't believe it. I'm like in flow right now.
Yes.
Because you actually are almost being a monk in your sanctuary, tidying the floor, putting everything back in place, getting everything aligned, so you can actually be.
That's right. Exactly.
So now you know.
Yeah. That's it.
I think for me, it's community and support system. We cannot undervalue what it takes to be around the right people, to feel supported, to be in community. You look at the blue zones. Why do people live longer? Because they spend time with people who are like-minded. They feel loved and supported. And I think we can never underplay. You don't want to be lonely and just biohacking yourself, right? Because that alone leads to a lot of other problems. So community and support system, at least for me, is very, very core and essential to living a healthy, happy life and functioning at your optimal and having the right mindset.
That's
Good.
great.
That's so good. We're social creatures,
Yeah.
right? You know, thinking about what you just said about you don't want to be lonely biohacking yourself. It reminds me of the guy Brian Johnson, right? I feel like he's really smart and doing a lot of biohacking, but he's missing that part. If you ever watched him lecture, like he
that's right.
is very
10 years ago on a date, I think, the guy.
Like, it's respectable, but you know, the community part. I would say I'll have a different answer, like a different twist, because all of what you shared are all great biohacking tools. But I also think where we get into trouble in the biohacking space is doing too much biohacking.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Great point.
Like,
Overhacking yourself.
like cold plunge, for example. I just got a brand new plunge. We'll do one soon. I think it's great. I love red light. I love sauna. I do all of that. But like, you could do too much. And the most important thing that I think we should pay attention to is after we did the biohack, the rest of the day, did we feel better or did we feel drained?
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Because somebody
Your
could
body.
do a cold plunge and have healthy mitochondria and do 3 minutes and feel energized like Misha would. Somebody who's mitochondrial challenged does 3 minutes and they're wiped out. They might get a panic attack. So I think we need to find that balance, that it's called this hormetic ceiling and that hormetic zone that we want to hit. But always pay attention back to the symptom thing, to how you feel the rest of the day. If you did cold plunge and you did 3 minutes at 39 degrees and you're wiped out, you did too much. So either increase the temperature or decrease the length, go 30 seconds. And then if you felt you did 30 seconds, now you feel energized the next time, you build from there. So I think we get into trouble when we do too much biohacking. We want to make sure we're actually benefiting from it and increasing this hormetic ceiling that we want to do.
Yeah.
And I just want to, Iman, I want to say that what you said was, I think, the most important thing that any of us said the entire panel is, it is, and the reason why I actually built my company, the Biohouse, is to actually create community centers where we're all doing this together. What I've noticed that when I got into this space, there's so many geniuses in the room that are all doing it in their own lab, in their own house, with their own team, but they're siloed. We're all doing this. When I see these booths and these massive conferences, I just see all these brands siloed. They're all working on their thing, they're all tinkering, they're all master scientists, but they're not working together, and they're not seeing that we actually, if we look to our left, look to our right, you have resources, I have resources, we actually can come together and do it together. So my brand, the Biohouse, literally is just that, is to create almost like a mentorship or a mentorship program and an incubation program for all of those brands that maybe don't have $100,000 a month for brick and mortars, but that can come into an activation space, join a network, join a community, because you're more likely to be unhealthy and sick if your community is than if your family is, or your parents are, right? So you are your community. And what I noticed that all these biohackers who are siloed, they're doing it alone, and they're actually most people here are searching for a connection because you know too much already. We're overdoing it, but we need to actually simplify it, as in, let's come together in community and support each other. Because if I support you, you support him, you support him, we can support you easier, right? And I can help you get healthy for you help him with Red Light. He can get you on a keto plan. I can get you a free Russian Turkish bathhouse pass because I got those connects. So that's community. And in that, you calm the nervous system because you're not anxious about reading your numbers, because you're busy talking to your neighbors about how happy you are, how good you feel on your hike with your dogs. And that's the reason why these conferences are so important to me, is because we're so close to actually making this a globally mainstream concept of Western medicine's broken, let's change the medical system, the mental health care system, and how do you do it? Talk therapy doesn't work, 12 steps works for some people, but the system we have right now is meant to keep people sick, 2% recovery rate. We can change that number by making people eat better food, do all these biohacking tips and tricks, and actually create a system where we can actually do it at a low cost, low barrier to entry access point. And that's literally why I'm doing what I'm doing. So what everyone's doing here is inspiring me to help all of us do this in community. And I really just want to be super clear on that. If you don't think you need a community to get healthy, try it on your own. It is a very, very lonely journey.
Yes.
In that lonely journey, your cortisol level is going to get jacked up, your hormones are going to get jacked up, you're going to deal with mental health issues, and then you're going to be battling your friends who are not your allies, trying to convince raise your hand if you get bored of convincing everyone why it's good to do what you do.
Yeah, that's right.
Like, it's tiring, right?
Lonely.
It's lonely. It's like, what am I convincing you to believe in my religion? No, it's like science. And some of it's peer reviewed, and if it's not peer reviewed, then it isn't real, which we need to understand that. Peer-reviewed studies happened in the 1950s because they wanted to validate special interests to fund different agendas. So literally before the 50s, peer-reviewed meant nothing. Like ancient medicine meant everything. So we really need to understand that we're in a evolution of the human species. The past 70 years is how we understood science and medicine. I don't think so. I don't buy it. So community, I think, is the way out of this problem. And for people, like Ben and Iman and John and Sandy, like, you are people in your community who are pillars and leaders who have to continue to say this message, because people, that are in this room, yes, you might be experts. Actually, like, you are experts. You're understanding a lot of these concepts. Most of these concepts, most people don't know. So now you have a responsibility to go to your network, your family, your community, and just share the fact that we can get well together. And that's the whole point. Community.
Beautiful.
That's a great point.
I
think my mic is on. I just want to actually say, community, I agree, it's so important. And what I actually love about this community is that everyone has so many tools. And I do want to get into the actual gadgets and the tools to really hack mood, because sometimes we need that, right? Like, sometimes, while I'm here, I'm actually probably more introvert than I am extrovert. So I went up a couple of times to recharge, and I have my favorite tools to do that quickly. And then I come back down and I'm like, all right, I can talk again. So I would love to hear your favorite tools that you like to use. I mean, I'm sure people are going to say brain tab. Maybe.
Yeah, it's great.
Then there's old school meditation, but maybe we just heard from you. Let's start with Ben. Let's start with Ben.
Damn, Misha.
Damn.
Oh, boy.
I love brain tap for sure. I just started using In Harmony meditation cushion. Have anybody used it before? Yeah, so it's a cushion that has vibration and acoustic sound therapy at the same time. So that's a great reset for me. Have that in my office whenever I need to just get away from work for a bit. But I mean, mine's a free tool, not necessarily like a biohacking one that we would get here. All these are great, don't get me wrong. But going back to the vitamin G that I spoke about, the gratitude part, right? It's like, it's impossible to feel angry and overwhelmed and resentful and then grateful at the same time. It really, like you said, the brain doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
It can't multitask.
It
Thank
can't.
God.
And the brain has this reticular activating system, which is the size of your pinky in your brain stem. So it's a little thing in your brain that I believe in God. God put it there, or Mother Nature, where it's a selective seeking mechanism. So it's a filter, I should say. So we know that there are millions of stimulation every day, and the brain has to filter that out. If we didn't have this RAS to filter out what we have taught to be not important, the brain would short circuit, like immediately. We wouldn't be able to focus. So the RAS is there to filter out things that we have taught it as not important. So I'm making a point here. When we want to buy a car, a red Tesla, and we do a lot of research and put a lot of attention into this red Tesla, and then we buy the red Tesla, what happens next? What happens next when we're driving in the streets? We see the red Tesla everywhere. Is the red Tesla there now because you bought it, or were they always there, but you now have activated the RAS to see it? Right? You've activated the RAS to see it. So when you focus on gratitude and vitamin G, all of a sudden, all the things you were overwhelmed about and angry about and resentful about and pissed off about are now things that you're grateful for. So when I showed the slide, what you appreciate appreciates, the universal law, but it's also scientific. What you feed to that RAS, you see more of. So for me, it's like daily dose of vitamin G. There's no anti-nutrients in it. There's no oxalates. It's for every diet out there. There's, it's free. There's no upper limit. So vitamin G would be my ultimate free biohack that I use every single day.
That's a really good one. I think piggybacking off what Ben is saying, I think perspective, having healthy perspective in life, and something that's free, breath. So simple.
So
Breathe,
important.
guys. Most of us are not even breathing. You don't have to do master breathwork classes, but just slow down. Slow your breath down. Take a few deep breaths. Start going back into your body. Start feeling connected to yourself again. I don't think enough of us do that. It's free. You can do it anywhere, anytime. It takes 5 to 10 minutes. 4 deep breaths in, hold, 4 deep breaths out, and you will see right away your mood will shift.
It does help. I agree. I
Right
tell my
away.
kids all
Yeah.
the time, Dr. Andrew Weil,
Yeah.
478, 478. Just remember 478 because their brains, they don't think
Yeah.
sometimes. So I think it's important. I'm sorry to say that, kids, if you ever watch this, but you probably won't.
They don't care.
But also I'm seeing so many young people, because they're overstimulated, get into these panic attacks. They're like, oh my God, I
Yeah.
need to calm down. I can't handle this. And it's like, take a deep breath.
Yeah.
Stop overstimulating yourself. Take a deep breath and then come back, have perspective. Are you going to be this upset about this situation in 5 minutes, in 10 minutes tomorrow? No, right? If it's a no, then remember that, right? Don't overreact.
I love
and
that. That's good.
I'll use
Yeah, I
We
love
should
that.
use that,
I
Risha.
like that.
I just stressed that out. Like, put it in the bag for an hour.
We tend to be so reactive in life because we're like, oh shit, I need to handle this right now.
Yeah.
Think about it. Is this going to bother you tomorrow? Is it going to bother you the day after? And the answer is like, no. Go back to your breath. Learn to self-regulate. I think people don't know how to self-soothe and self-regulate, and that's why people are so ramped up in society, because we're overstimulated. So we need to learn ways, everyone's different, coping mechanisms and how to self-regulate, self-soothe, calm ourselves down, and be able to do that for ourselves, not be looking for external ways to always do that in gadgets. Go back to your body.
Before I get to you, John, I want to ask you, just on that point of breath work, if anybody here on this panel has ever done, I know you have, frequency breath work?
No.
Frequency breath work? Vivian Rosenthal?
Oh, you know Vivian?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, right.
So,
She's awesome. She's a place called Frequency, and they do how you say it.
no,
Holotropic breath.
I just want to
How you
say,
it.
onto what you're saying, sometimes in order to regulate our mood,
Yeah.
we need to have a release. And oh my God, does that ever provide that for you? I think everybody in the audience, when I watched her, she did a lecture in Boston last year. Everyone was bawling, sobbing with strangers. And then we're all like, all right, I'm feeling good now. We let it out.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to add to the breath work that sometimes we need something to kind of release, help us release.
Well, does anybody know what holotropic breath work is? Or did anybody not know what it
What
is?
is?
Yeah, explain it. You're better at that, for sure, because you know her.
What is?
I'm better at this.
Yeah.
You should just want to know
So basically, I don't really. I wasn't complimented a lot as a kid, so these are nice. But basically, a lot of, like Wim Hof method, he uses holotropic breath work.
Yes.
They basically say it can mimic a psychedelic experience, and some people say it's actually more impactful than ayahuasca or like 7 grams of mushrooms to actually really do a guided holotropic experience. And Vivian, she has this brand in New York City, and she's opening one down here.
Oh,
They
is
do
she?
pop-ups
So
at
cool.
Art Basel, but I don't know if I might be helping her open up one here. But they basically have like these giant domes. If you want to buy one, I can hook her up. They do pop-ups on people's properties, but they basically these giant visual, gorgeous, Peruvian music, gorgeous visual art. But then they have like she leads the breath work, but it's like when you leave, you actually feel like you're on drugs, like
Or anxious at first, right?
Or
like
good
you're like,
drugs, sorry.
it's very different type of breath work for sure.
No drugs, sorry. Just, it makes you feel like you're, had a nice glass of water and you're calm, and your mother's giving you a hug. But what happens is, actually, when you brought up, no one knows people don't know how to breathe really, and that's funny you said Vivian. So I brought my ex-girlfriend who, she's a VC, she's very, very corporate, very in her head and not in her body and her heart, but to the point where she's a chain smoker and an alcoholic, abusive alcoholic. I got rid of her, thank God. But she couldn't, didn't breathe. Was a very shallow, breath worker or breather. So Vivian comes over and kind of helps you breathe and works with breath work. And she literally came over and my ex-girlfriend, nothing was coming out of her mouth, but she was breathing, but there was no real breath. So she's living her whole life with this, and she had severe anxiety and would cope with cigarettes and alcohol. It'd be her biohack to get out of that space. Remember, short-term gain for long-term pain, right? That's the mood stuff, right? So we've got to be careful with, how we supplement our mood stabilizers. Mm-hmm. I say this to say, Vivian was so shocked that someone wasn't breathing, and it basically made sense that she was so disconnected from her mind and heart, and we had a lot of issues. She was not that nice. And I think it was because she didn't actually know how to breathe. So when we had some really big arguments or fights, I'd be like, just take 5 deep breaths. And she'd be a different person. So yes, breathing works.
5 deep breaths.
Yeah, 5 deep breaths. It kind of makes them, when you tell people to calm down and breathe, it almost feels like you're berating them or makes them feel childish. So it's a very touch and go thing. You don't want to tell someone who's having a manic episode that they're being manic or crazy to calm down. So if you can breathe with them and say, let's do it together, and can we just ground together, or it's not you need to take a deep breath, which I've done that in the past, doesn't work. Again, you have to have sympathy for our partners and our neighbors, because so many of us are dealing with stuff that we're not telling anyone, right? I have an open book. I tell people all my problems. It's an oversharing codependency trait. It's very toxic, but I like it. I don't want to change my mental illness. So, but I know it's you got to be careful with it. So that is what I really try to do in my career, is really help people understand that you can't hold it all in. When you hold it all in, you're going to actually suppress your breath, repress your feelings, and that's where toxicity, mental health issues are actually a manifestation of gut health and other stuff. So I just wanted to say
And
that.
we all like you too, because you're authentic.
Thank
He's
you.
real.
That's right.
You're
We love
real.
Misha.
You're real.
Real, yes.
Yes.
We love Misha.
So-
That is what I would say. You're
Okay,
real.
authentic.
Misha is #real.
Can you
Yes.
put that on the clip for the
Hashtag real. Hashtag real. What about you, John?
I actually wanted to double down on the gratitude, because
Yes.
I like the way you said it. It is actually the #1 hack. There was a very key times in my life when I realized that. It was in a position where I didn't have a choice. It was a survival thing where I'm like, I will lose my mind. This is some heavy trauma I'm about to deal with. The only way I can deal with this is to survive it. So, and I remember I used to say, thank you. And at the first, you don't even necessarily believe it. You're just trying to get through the hour, get through the day. But going to what you said, where your brain can't do 2, it worked. And when it works, you double down on it. And when you'll find it's like a cup of water, you fill it up with gratitude and it gets full. But when you keep filling it up, it starts overflowing, and you carry it on over the day. You have a surplus. And then when things happen, and when tragedies happen, you lose a friend, lose a family member, or when work doesn't go so well, or something bad happens, you have a surplus of gratitude, and you've got that to get you through it. And that is something I 100% is I've experienced that. It's definitely.
I actually
So
think
good.
that's a great way to end, because I think we're out of time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I want to thank you guys.
Thank you.
And thank the Biohacking Congress for having this incredible venue. And thank you guys for coming.
Yes.
So
Thank
fun.
you guys. Thank you all.
Double down with some gratitude.
That was so good, you
Yes.
guys.
Ending with vitamin G.
Can I
That's the
do
best
one
one.
extra just for 1 second?
Ask
One
Mitch.
second, Mick, about the gratitude, just that one
Yeah,
thing.
yeah,
It'll
yeah.
be 30 seconds or less. So
I don't know.
I'm going to count me.
Start time.
I'm going to triple down on the gratitude. So the vitamin G actually has an amazing shirt. Vitamin G, I actually didn't even think of that when I mentioned the gratitude versus the anxiety thing.
Anxiety.
But that's exactly it, right? It's, if you can be grateful, our mind, God or another or nature puts them in their head where you actually can't multitask on that one part of the brain, which is almost like a phenomenon, right? That being said, has anybody heard of the term Ho'oponopono?
Yes.
Okay, so exactly, I love this guy. So what he said was he has to be grateful and thankful, and you were in a place where you needed the only way out. So Ho'oponopono basically is this Hawaiian blessing or prayer. It just basically means I love you, I thank you, I'm sorry. It was I love you, I thank you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, right? And it's like a song. So it's a blessing and a song. So what happened was this guy did a whole study in Hawaii with these prisoners, like the worst violent prisoners in Hawaii, were basically just having them sing the song. Like one group, another group didn't, a control group. Literally within a week, the entire population was like, no more crime, no more violence, they're all working together. Literally because of your rewiring your brain. It's like neurofeedback for free. You're actually, with no mushrooms necessary, you literally can rewire your brain by just doing that and by being grateful, being thankful, being of service. And thank you, Mike, for Mick, and Colette for
Yeah.
being of service for us. So thank you.
Thank you.